Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 584 for the 22nd of December 2019. Richard Saunders here with you once again from the Bay Area, San Francisco, which is nice and foggy and cool and cold and foggy and foggy. And I really am concerned and thinking about the people back in Australia, in Sydney, watching the TV news yesterday on YouTube, by the way, ABC News 24, the Australian news service, free on YouTube, which is really good when you're travelling, and being horrified by the ring of fire around Sydney, the bad situation in South Australia, the smoke, the hazards, it's not a good story, it's not a good situation at all. And I noticed my friend and reporter on the Skeptic Zone, Trish Han, was taking part in some protests about the climate just recently, and hats off to her and everybody who gets out there and makes their voices heard. But coming back to this week's show, we have more, and we will for the next few months, more from Maynard, who was running around like a lunatic, which is quite normal, at the recent Skepticon in Melbourne. This week, Maynard catches up with Jamie Lopez, somebody I had not met before, just somebody who came along to be part of Skepticon, to see the talks. An interesting story to tell, somebody who was once into lots of belief and woo. Then Steve Roberts, a good friend of mine and a long-time skeptic, steals Maynard's microphone and does a bit of reporting himself. Maynard also chats to Australian Skeptics Inc. President Jessica Singer. Then he ends up in the media room, the good people at the Vic Skeptics provided for us, and chats to Skeptic Zone reporters Mandy-Lee and Heidi Robertson about all sorts of things, including vitamins, blood tests, and the anti-vax reaction to the Samoa situation, and to remind you where many children sadly have been dying lately of measles. After that, once again, it's a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham. This segment, Tim reads from a section of the Skeptic magazine called What Goes Around. This is all about psychic surgery and spirits and things like that. And this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone is slightly shorter than normal, owing to travel and jet lag and, life sort of getting in the way every now and then. While I'm here in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, I hope to interview some local skeptics, and I also hope to take part in a Skepticamp in Monterey, which is south of San Francisco. More news about that in the coming weeks, although you can check out the link to that in this week's show notes. Stay tuned at the end of the show for more announcements from me, but now it's time for me to put on something warm, run up the stairs, see if there's any cheese. Some old cheese, some new cheese, maybe some red cheese or blue cheese. This is either the Skeptic Zone or Dr. Zeus, I'm not sure which. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Skeptic Zone fans are coming thick and fast here today. Who have we got? I'm just looking at that. Mr. Skepticon, Italian.
Yes, Jamie Lopez here. Portuguese, actually.
Portuguese? Yeah. Hang on, didn't they decriminalise a whole bunch of drugs recently?
Well, they decriminalised the use of drugs. So, yes.
So if you're driving a huge van through, like I'm tending to do, I could get in trouble.
Yeah, you can still get into a lot of trouble, yes, but at least you get help for it instead of being thrown into prison.
So how's it been? It's been going for about a year or two since they did this in Portugal. Have they had the the long-term actual evidence-based societal good or not?
Yes, totally. So now instead of actually criminalizing the use of drugs, they actually allow people to seek help, and so the social environment and also psychotherapeutic treatment rather than what they had before, which was basically nothing.
Yeah, and getting in jail.
Yes, pretty much. That helps nobody.
Right. And do you get really annoyed when people go, oh, right, Spanish? You hate that.
I just say I'm automatically Mexican. Yeah.
Okay. And what are you looking forward to this weekend? It's a huge weekend of skeptical knock-down, drag-em-out action.
You know what? It's my first time here at Skepticon, so I'm looking forward to hearing all the speakers just give their talks and just getting involved in the skeptical movement. Never had done this before, so it's a good eye-opener for me.
Now, you've seen the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, people.
Yeah.
Do they look the way you thought they'd look? From hearing them, yeah.
Actually, they do, because I did see a couple of photos, and I do follow Alpha Quadrant 6 as well, and I actually started listening to the SGU because of Cara Santa Maria. So when she jumped on SGU, then I'm like, oh, wait, I need to hear more about this. So that's when I jumped on them as well.
Look, I've read the title of her talk over the weekend, and frankly, my little ape brain doesn't really understand it. Do you know what her talk is actually about?
No, we'll find out.
I know, it's a tough one for me. I went, that's good. And look, also, because you're an Alpha Quadrant 6 listener, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Doctor Who.
Very diplomatic answer there. But then again, people say, well, which Doctor?
Oh, I will abstain from answering from that one.
Well done. You are well practiced at this. You don't want to get into fights at a skeptical meeting. I can tell that kind of thing.
No, there are too many skeptics here to fight.
They are too, because everyone's got their own very strong...
Yes.
There'd be someone out there who's a huge Colin Baker fan. You've got to watch out for that.
Oh, okay. We'll do. Yeah, point him out and we'll see. I'll try to avoid him.
And how did you get... so you got into listening to the Skeptic Zone how, again?
Well, I was looking for more skeptical movement, so more how to actually get involved into the skeptical movement here in Australia. So I started seeing the Skeptics in the Pub, the Skeptic Zone, so I started getting slowly more involved into listening to podcasts and seeing what I could do. But actually, before this, or about, let's say, 5 years ago, I was deep into pseudoscience and deep into...
So what was your woo of choice at the time? Was it a medical one, or was it a conspiracy-based one?
You know what? Anything. From the age of 14 to about 24, I spent 10 years studying occultism. So, I was actually a Reiki master. I used to do aura readings, astrology.
Could you do it? Could you do Rolfing over the phone?
Oh, totally. Anything. Because energy travels through any medium, right? So that's all we needed to do. So, after a while, I just thought, no, I spent 10 years of my life looking into all this pseudoscience spirituality, and it gave me nothing other than confirmation bias.
Is it a bit awkward when you meet people who used to know you back then and don't know?
You know what? No, not at all. It's like they live their own lives. They're still doing what they do. And I grew up in Portugal, so it's very spiritual, and it's a lot about the nature.
So is that as big into Catholicism as Spain?
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But at the same time, you have a new neo movement with this younger generation as well, which try to seek a bit more of an outlet with spirituality rather than religion.
So a new agey kind of thing.
Exactly.
Oh, right, like God is everywhere kind of thing.
God is everywhere and in anything, and it's all about energies, it's all about connection. So that's sort of attachment. Yeah, it was an interesting change from that into science.
Wow, yeah. Well, it's harder work too, because you've got to read and look up stuff.
Oh, totally. Like I said, I spent about 10 years just looking into spirituality and practicing. I was part of a coven in Portugal. So it was to that point of...
Wow.
Yes.
You should see my eyes, folk. Wow.
It was a huge thing, and to actually transition from that into a more critical, skeptical, scientific thinking, it changed a bit of my personality and a bit of how I identify myself as well, because I was strongly rooted into the whole belief of pseudoscience and spiritualism.
Now, one of the questions that comes up a little bit in atheist circles too, for people that were deeply involved in various faiths, is the faiths, because they don't require evidence there, they're much more calming, and there's much more like if something bad happens, there's a more amorphous way you can absorb a shock with a belief, where with evidence, that's not the case.
That's very true. I felt like you could twist nearly anything and everything to fit a spiritual, pseudoscientific approach. I was even saying earlier, so when I was doing Reiki, for me it was like, oh, but we have iron in our blood, and so that iron travels through our blood, for our body, and that generates a magnetic field, and that magnetic field that we see is our aura. So that actually, as you can see, we have these scientific words that sound plausible turned into a pseudoscientific paradigm that all of a sudden now feeds into spirituality. So the less I know, or the more I know about something very specific, and the less I know about anything else, it kind of leads me down that route as well. Okay. So I felt like, I could explain what I was doing spiritually, but in a scientific manner by saying, but iron and magnetism and auras. Yeah. So it was...
And now you haven't got that, and you've had to go, how does that work? I better do some work and look it up.
Well, I actually saw mostly, that's true, but I actually saw that a lot of science gives me plenty of questions, but it answers many more of them, and it gives me a systematic approach to answers rather than just giving me the answers that I want to believe in. It gives me the answers that are true or an approximation to the truth rather than what I want to believe in, which is way more fulfilling.
You must be really looking forward to the seance that's going to be happening with Mark Edward.
Oh, that science will be amazing. Yeah, totally. I want to be in tune with the spirits. I kind of know how... I used to do seances as well, so I used to be involved in the whole woo of everything. So you were sort of fooling yourself in many ways because you genuinely believed. So anything that was like, you're positively, that's what that is, yes. Yeah, I was a true believer. I thought that people didn't have access to this knowledge just because they didn't invest in it, and they needed to actually be true believers to have access to this knowledge that anyone else wasn't able to have.
And now, I guess people come to you, look, before, man, you were so open-minded. Now you're so closed, you're hanging with the skeptics. Yeah. Skeptics are so closed-minded. Have you got that one, Well, it's not... It's what did I say? It's like have an open mind, but not open enough that your brains fall out, right? And I felt like my brains were falling out back then, but now I have a bit more of a sieve going on, so things get captured. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and just keep what is actual science and actual truth, rather than just what you want to believe in. Look, well spoken. And before you go, give us your favourite skeptical scientific website that you think you'd recommend to people. It might be one we know, it might be one we don't know.
Oh, that is a very good question. I mean, I would always go to the SGU just because I'm a huge fan, and the Skeptic Zone as well. And not to mention the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe book, which is a great compendium of any skeptical thinking and critical thinking that everyone should have at their home.
Look, and one of the good science shows I like, Diffusion Science Radio is always a good one too. It's reporting on some local stories from around Australia from time to time. It's been going for years, and his news wrap up at the beginning is often stuff you might miss. Yeah, good, yeah.
Perfect. I'll look that up.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, you too.
I think that's Maynard. No, that's...
Oh, here I am with Jessica in the bar of the pub. How, Jessica, how are you going?
Hey, Steve, how are you going?
That's right, yeah. Oh, we're sitting here in the corner of the bar, but I found this microphone.
Cut that out there. Steve, racing away there, interviewing people for no reason at all.
Yeah, I have indeed. I found the microphone lying around, and I thought I'd give it a go and see if there's any dust in it.
Look, I've been sleeping in your garage, just underneath the motorbike, and it's been great. Thank you.
Oh, it's a privilege. I normally charge extra for that, but to you, my son.
Yep. Although your motorbike does have Netflix, so I appreciate that. Look, and also we have been doing a fairly in-depth report on the roaming cat problem in the Yarra Council area. I've been broadening this up with a few people. Have you ever personally had trouble with a roaming cat?
Well, I do, yeah. Next door's cat comes in, and I'm very enlightened to see the roaming cat policy of Yarra Council, whereupon cats that are decreed to be roaming cats are identified as such, and a roaming cat officer will come and identify them again.
It's a bit vague, isn't it? Like, if you can see the cats going up trees and attacking possums, that's something, but just the fact it's wandering around at night. What do you think, Jessica?
Well, I'm the lawyer here, so I say define roaming cat. What is a roaming cat? Cats roam, so what? They go out...
This is what I did. I went to their legislation on the Yarra Council website, and it appears to be a cat that is continually coming onto your property and you don't want it to. And it's as simple as that.
You have to define continually.
Yes.
And cats have their own territory. They go out and about. It's quite...
And also the fact that if the ranger catches the cat, it will take it to the lost dogs home, which is probably not a place for a cat.
No, they'd hate it. And I mean, look, cats roam. It's natural, that wonderful word natural, therefore it must be good.
Yeah, that's true.
You'd have to bring the ranger to the place where the cat is roaming, and by the time he got there, the cat probably wouldn't be roaming anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. They want to be quick.
Especially if the cat knows it's going to be dumped into the lost dog's home.
Yes.
So I'd roam somewhere else if I was you.
Well, also, imagine what the ranger's van must smell like, because it's mainly dogs that go in there, and a cat would smell that coming down the road a mile away.
Oh, but a cat could pee, and that would cancel out any dog smell.
Right. Now, and Jessica, you're down from Sydney as the president. Are you going to be eyeballing them, and are you going to try and
You're with, aren't you?
Are you going to try and white ant their conference? Like they'll be doing something, and you'll be up the back going bullshit, or boo, stuff like that, and getting round at different places in the audience and pretending you're another person booing. Yeah, are you going to try and wreck it for them?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We love the Victorian Skeptics, and we have a great relationship with them and work very well with them. We absolutely fully support them, and it's just wonderful to see they've done a fantastic job organising, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Actually, is the one you're looking forward to? Is one of the talks? Or?
They all look good. SGU, of course. Susan Gerbic, it's great to have her, and she'll be coming to Sydney later and doing Skeptics in the Pub.
And the seance with Mark.
I know, very intriguing. So, yeah, looking forward to it all.
Okay, look, a very diplomatic answer there from the president. Well, Skeptic Zone listener, you're inside the media room right now. I'm here on my own, but let me describe this secret VIP backstage podcasters and media only room to you. There's a couple of tables, looks a bit like a small lecture room. There's a couple of blank whiteboards, and that's about it really. It's got all the exuberance and excitement of a 1987 used Ford Cortina. It's just like that, and only slightly larger. Okay. Now look, we're in the media room here. As I mentioned earlier, it has all the ambience of a second-hand 1987 Ford Cortina, except it's only slightly larger. Who have we got here? First off the mark, with the on-air sign on as well. You can't see it, but the on-air sign is on, listener.
I'm Mandy-Lee Noble, accredited practicing dietitian and skeptic.
That's right, yes.
Skeptic Zone reporter.
Oh, and Skeptic Zone reporter, of course.
Yes, she's a
diet skeptic.
Yes, she's the one who recommended I do the white knuckling diet, and I try really hard because she said it's the only thing that works. Briefly.
Well, not quite true. I said that all diets do not work. Most people try to white knuckle their way through it, but weight seems to always come back.
Okay, so for all those hungry people out there on a diet now, wouldn't you like a biscuit? And who else have we got here?
You're terrible, Maynard. Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters.
Right. Now, look, I was just... Yay!
And Skeptic Zone reporter.
Yay! Look, I was just upstairs and I heard Dr. Brad say that you should just take lots of vitamin C and that'll... Oh, hang on. Now, he was saying that's what didn't work. Is that correct?
Yeah, most of us are getting plenty of enough vitamin C, and it doesn't really work on colds or flus at all. So not really worth supplementing it with it.
Right. And actually, if you want to know if you're deficient of a vitamin, is it as easy as a blood test or not?
Yeah, you definitely shouldn't be taking any supplements unless your GP has recommended it, and you really need to find out whether you're deficient, because vitamins and minerals aren't innocuous, and they can actually cause really serious symptoms if people are getting too much or those sort of things. But also, taking some vitamins can mask the symptoms of being deficient in others. So it can kind of cause a lot of problems. So definitely go and see your GP or go and see a dietitian.
Right. And of course, if you go for a test, as well as the vitamins, can it get all the other little minerals in your blood that should be there and measure all of them as well? Are we that good that we get everything?
There's different ways to test different deficiencies, but for the most part, there's only really a couple of key things that we may be deficient in. In Australia, we have access to really good nutrition, and most of us are not deficient. Most of us,
despite what people say, because they go, "Oh no, the food you buy in Coles, all the vitamins and goodness has gone out of it."
That's completely not true. It's really a myth.
I'm going to stop saying that in Coles then, because that really annoys them, particularly in the fish section when I'm talking about the vegetables.
Yeah, but definitely, especially if you're eating those core foods, so fruit, vegetables, meats, those sort of things. Not everyone in Australia has the same level of access. I will totally acknowledge that, but for the majority of Australians, we do have good food and eating good food and a big variety of food. So lots of different foods is definitely the way to go.
And what's the hot button issue up in the Northern Rivers at the moment? Are there any great chemtrail posters going up there? Anything new?
What's going on? Just the usual. The anti-vaccination stuff is always at the forefront of...
And how have they been reacting to the situation in Samoa in any particular way?
A little bit quiet on that front.
That bit of a glass of shut-up juice has gone down.
Well, I have heard when they do discuss it that they are saying, well, we're only hearing what mainstream media is reporting. We don't know the real story of what's going on. The children over there that are dying are vitamin A deficient, and that's what is causing the deaths, and the doctors should be giving vitamin A. The doctors are apparently giving antibiotics for a viral ill. Like they're just doing the most astounding mental gymnastics to justify their position.
I was reading it might have been the ABC News Online last night, the person who'd been arrested for disseminating, I think, anti-vax information on Facebook it was. His supporters were being urged to send him vitamin supplements. Like no money, no, don't write to the government, send him vitamin supplements. I thought that was kind of interesting. Is he expecting a bad diet in jail or something, is he? Or...
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, I just read that. It was an interesting one that they were encouraging them to
send
the support of vitamin supplements. I thought, okay. Yeah.
I think that they are actually to give to the people in Samoa. Yeah. And one of the really big problems that people have to realise is I know that there's him and there's a couple of other alternative medicine providers in Samoa, is that they're getting groups of people to come to their houses for treatment. So in a place where we have a measles outbreak, they're actually congregating groups of young people, which is not at the moment actually illegal in Samoa. It's illegal to have groups of under 19s together, but also just making the problem a lot worse. So these people are really
and delaying treatment because they're saying, well, come to my house and have the alkaline water, and that will cure you. And here are some vitamins, and therefore they're delaying treatment. And by the time the kids get really sick, they're being admitted to hospital and they're dying, and then all of a sudden it's the doctor's fault because they're all dying in hospital. And isn't it terrible?
And it's not like Australia. You don't have, Australia's got really amazing healthcare. You're not going to get that similar healthcare. So once children are in trouble, they are really in trouble. It's quite quick what happens after that. It's not very good.
Well, so just imagine being a mother with a very, very, very young child there. You just have to stay inside the house. You'd be so scared. Yeah,
it would be really terrifying for those people, and really confusing as well, because they've had a year of this anti-vax messages, and parents are really acting on what they think are the right thing to do and trying to protect their children, and now they've got this measles outbreak. So I think it would be really quite traumatic for everyone involved.
So is the anti-vax message that there's the autism worry there, or is it that you will get the measles from having the vaccine? What seemed to be the message that's going there?
Yeah, there's a bit of both. Yep. The vaccine is dangerous. You will get measles from the vaccine. It will give you autism. All of the anti-vaccination tropes are coming out.
What I often feel about the anti-vaccination movement and some of the anti-science movement is it isn't always necessarily anti-science. It seems to be an anti-corporatism, anti-globalism thing they've got there. Have I got the wrong end of the stick there? But I seem to get it's the vaccine might be okay, but it's the way it's being marketed, or the way that they want to sell it or something. It's an anti-capitalism thing. Am I getting the wrong end of the stick there? But that's what it seems to start with.
I think it's really, really multifaceted. So you could find anti-vaxxers that take any sort of position, whether it's even a religious one, as what we've seen, or it's about, just pushing back against medication. Maybe they've had like an earlier engagement with a health professional and it hasn't gone well, and then that's spread into a widespread distrust of health services. So it is really, really multifaceted. It really pays when someone is promoting an anti-vax idea to find out what it is, to ask some questions. Where did this thought that vaccination was going to be harmful and not a good idea come from?
Right, okay. Yeah, well, what have you found in the Northern Rivers? Is it more of a general anti-capitalist thing, or is it specifically science that they're arguing with?
It just depends who you speak with. It's different. It's not. There's no one easy answer to this. So, yeah, a lot of people in the Northern Rivers have a general mistrust of, corporate bodies and capitalism and all that kind of stuff. Big Pharma is the.
And they always seem to mention the vaccine court in the US, how it's not a real thing and it protects the company in an unfair way from any damage they would do. They often bring that up too.
Yeah, and what happens is that they co-opt theories, as they go along, and they build this big theory so that Andrew Wakefield will always come up or someone else. So as you unpack it, you'll find that bits and pieces from other theories and stuff, and sometimes some of these things are conflicting, I will say, in their arguments, but they'll get co-opted into this widespread distrust of modern medicine and those sort of things. The only way I think the Northern Rivers vaccination supporters has a really great way that they're sort of trying to unpack these and listen to people and not have that aggressive sort of push back against them, but actually try to understand a bit more about it. Is that right, Heidi?
That's what we try to do. Having said that, I'm the first to admit that I still get extremely frustrated at times, and it's really hard at times to not just go a little bit berserk with people. But yes, we do try and isolate one or two of their main concerns and not start throwing facts and science at them and bombarding them, but listening. And like we say, and I've said it 1,000 times on Skeptic Zone before, the 1,000 cups of tea approach, because you're not going to change someone's mind in one session of talking to them. It's not like you can tell them the facts and all of a sudden they change their mind. It takes a long time and bit by bit.
What would be, just to finalise here, the opening elevator pitch, because someone goes, I'm not so sure about vaccination. Is there like a couple of sentences you could just quietly say to them that's a good opening way to that 1,000 cups of tea?
I don't have a script or anything to go by. It really depends on the person I'm speaking to, the circumstances, how long we've got to chat. I will listen to them and I might say something to them like, if you had to just tell me the most... where your area of most concern surrounding
the biggest reason why you're not.
Yeah, what's the biggest? What's the biggest reason? What's your biggest concern? And really get them to specify something, and then we can maybe address that and talk about that and get into it a little bit deeper about how they came to that worry and what led them to being concerned about that particular aspect. But yeah, it's complicated. It's not easy.
Yeah, which is part of the problem, because people think, oh yes, no, there's an easy thing. I'll do this or I won't do that. By the way, what's the wonder food I should be eating for permanent good health?
Just lots of different foods, lots of fruit and vegetables, and lots of whole foods and those sort of things. The variety, that's the thing. Lots of foods.
So all poor diet, not a good idea.
Definitely not restricting at all, or eating just one food and enjoying food. I reckon that's the wonder drug. Like enjoying it and enjoying it, how it brings us all together and how we all enjoy it. So that's a big thing.
Well, enjoy your skeptical weekend. I'll probably catch up with you again sometime.
Surf Coast Summer Skepticamp 8. Saturday, the 29th of February, 2020, 10:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Surf Coast Summer Skepticamp, SCSS 8, is Australia's longest-running Skepticamp. In 2020, we are celebrating our 8th year.
Skepticamps are designed to give many members the opportunity to present on a topic of their choice for about 20 minutes. Skepticamps have been run in hundreds of locations and in many countries since the first one was held in 2007 in Denver, USA.
So, if you want to share something on a skeptically related topic in which you are interested, or highlight some practices that you see as dubious that need to be brought to the attention of the skeptics community, or something we might find interesting, please offer to share your thoughts. This is a sharing event where many contributors combine to have a great day in an idyllic location.
Speaking of having a great day, Aireys Inlet is a picturesque township located on the Victorian Surf Coast. The summertime is a great time to enjoy the delights of this location, so why not make a weekend of it and stay in the area for the night, or a few nights. Feel free to enjoy the location and the views. At the end of the day, we head to the Aireys pub for a drink, dinner and skeptical discussion.
It is free to register. We might ask for a small contribution, maybe $5, to cover general costs.
Offers to present should be made to the Skeptic Groups of Victoria email address at sgofvic@gmail.com. As for the speakers, we will update you regularly, but since this is a participatory event, you should consider making a contribution yourself.
To register at Meetup, just follow the links in this week's show notes. Surf Coast Summer Skepticamp 8. And now, a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham.
Hi, my name's Tim Mendham. I'm Executive Officer of Australian Skeptics Inc. and I'm the editor of our magazine The Skeptic. And today I'll be reading from a regular column of the magazine called What Goes Around. Now this is designed to show that, as we say, the almost inevitable realisation that all knowledge is connected and connectable in classical conspiracy theory manner. What we have is a lot of interesting facts that go around and around the page in a carousel format, and you can jump on anywhere you like. But today we'll start with the arrow points in the story of speaking, spirits and psychic surgery. This is What Goes Around from The Skeptic, December 2017, Volume 37, Number 4. The first Australian Skeptics National Convention was held in Sydney during Easter 1985. As the first such event in the country, public and media interest was huge, and several TV crews filming the event. Of special interest was a demonstration of glossolalia by noted linguist and Canberra skeptic Don Laycock. Outside of those who frequented faith-healing sessions on charismatic and Pentecostal meetings, this was probably the first time many in the audience had heard an example of glossolalia, more commonly referred to as speaking in tongues. A distinction should be made between glossolalia and xenoglossy, which means speaking in a real language previously unknown to the speaker. Glossolalia is a phenomenon in which people appear to speak in unknown languages, often sounding and being gibberish syllables delivered at a rapid-fire rate. As an example, the character of Latka Gravas, played by the comedian Andy Kaufman in the TV series Taxi, could be seen as speaking glossolalia, without the religious overtones, when rattling off a supposed Eastern European language. Other religious groups have been observed to practice some form of theonuistic, divinely inspired glossolalia, perhaps most commonly in paganism, shamanism, and other mediumistic religious practices, as well as the voodoo religion of Haiti, Hindu gurus and Muslim fakirs of India. Glossolalia has even been suggested as an explanation for the 15th century Voynich manuscript written in a language yet to be deciphered. Speaking in tongues was seen as one of the self-evident manifestations of spirits. That was an aspect of Spiritism. Spiritism was developed by the 19th century French educator Allan Kardec, whose real name was Hippolyte Léon Denizard Rivail. The language spoken could possibly be described as xenoglossy, if you happen to believe in real spirits who have a real language. Spiritism is a, quote, spiritualistic philosophy, which Kardec proposed was the study of the nature, origin and destiny of spirits and their relation with the corporeal world. It soon spread to other countries with strong followings in Brazil and Southeast Asia. The term first appeared in Kardec's book, The Spirits Book, which sought to distinguish Spiritism from spiritualism. Now, both Spiritism and spiritualism have influenced the social movement of healing centres, charity institutions and hospitals. One manifestation of this healing focus is psychic surgery. In the Philippines, the procedure was first noticed in the 1940s, when performed routinely by Eleuterio Terte and his pupil Tony Agpoa, who was apparently associated with the Union Espiritista Cristiana de Filipinas, or the Christian Spiritist Union of the Philippines. The process creates the illusion of performing surgery, with the practitioner supposedly putting their bare hands into a patient's body to remove tumours. An assistant will usually remove the parts before they can be examined, conveniently, and the incision will spontaneously heal. In 1959, the procedure came to the attention of the US public after the publication of Into the Strange Unknown by Ron Ormond and Ormond McGill. The authors called the practice fourth dimensional surgery and wrote, "We still don't know what to think, but we have motion pictures to show it wasn't the work of any normal magician and could very well be just what the Filipinos said it was, a miracle of God performed by a fourth dimensional surgeon." In 1981, the Journal of Religion and Health reported on a 1973 tour of a group of medical doctors, scientists and parapsychologists who visited the Philippines to study the phenomenon. Psychic surgery, also known as spiritual or magnetic healing, was denounced by the US Federal Trade Commission as a total hoax, and the American Cancer Society maintains that psychic surgery may cause needless death by keeping the ill away from life-saving medical care. One such example was, again, Andy Kaufman of glossolalia fame, who visited a Filipino psychic surgeon in March 1984 for a 6-week session to cure large cell carcinoma. After the session, Kaufman declared that he had been cured, and he died within weeks. 1 year later, psychic surgery was publicly demonstrated in Australia, possibly for the first time by magician Peter Shields and 2 Filipino assistants. This took place at the first Australian Skeptics National Convention held in Sydney during Easter 1985, which brings us back to our starting point. So that's what goes around on Speaking Spirits and Psychic Surgery from The Skeptic, December 2017, Volume 37, Number 4.
ただいま聞いていただいているポッドキャストはオーストラリアからザ・スケプチックゾーンという科学と論理のポッドキャストです。英語は世界中で数ある言葉の一つですが、このポッドキャストはいろいろな国の言葉で紹介します。www.skepticzone.tv を調べてホームページの下までにスクロールすると折り紙のピガサスという翼のある豚を工夫したリチャード・ソンダースのオリジナルの折り紙のポスターをダウンロードすることができます。
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, as you would have heard during this week's episode, Skepticamp is coming up at the Surf Coast Summer Skepticamp 8. And I hope to be there myself, Aries Inlet in Victoria, on the 29th of February, a day that only occurs once every 4 years. And we will bring you more news and information about that particular event in the coming weeks. Also, head to www.skepticzone.tv, scroll to this week's episode, which is at the top of the page, and in the show notes you'll find a link to Maynard's 2020 calendar. A free Maynard calendar for you to download and print out. Yes, spend each month with Maynard. And you can also check out Maynard's podcasts at maynard.com.au. Thank you to those people here in the United States, in Australia, and around the world who show their real support for the Skeptic Zone by PayPal or Patreon. Although I must admit these days it is easier for people to use the Patreon option. And for those people who are generous enough to support the show to the tune of at least $10 a month, there's a little package that gets sent out to you, including how to make origami DVDs and a little folded Pegasus and some photographs and other bits and pieces. And you can become a sponsor of the show by visiting www.skepticzone.tv and clicking the Patreon link. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, or however you choose to spend this time of the year, no matter where you are. And I certainly hope the situation in Sydney and Australia generally with the fires can improve. But for this week, signing off from the Bay Area, San Francisco, this is Richard Saunders. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.
Other religious groups have been observed to practice some thought... Who wrote this?
Hello to the people who listen after the music. No, I haven't forgotten. I did bring a D10, a die with me. So, numbers from 1 to 10. Well, actually, I've dropped it. Come back. The die actually has numbers from 0 to 1. But we count the 0 as 10 if it comes up. So, you know the drill, probably. If you don't, sometimes I roll a die 10 times. 10 times, 3 times, it's got 10 sides, and you use your, let's just say, your predicting powers of dumb luck or psychic ability, who knows, and if you can guess the 3 numbers that come up, that's odds of 1 in 1,000. So here we go. First number, are you ready? Here it comes. The first number this week is 4. So I'll write that down with my Skeptic Zone pencil. Next number coming up. Ready? Predict away, and what's that? That is a 9. 9, 4, and 9. Okay, last number. Predict away. Here it comes. Another 4. So, this week's numbers are 4, 9, and 4.